Welcome back. We are continuing with book 6 of the Odyssey, The Princess and the Stranger. It's on page 168 of our Bagel's translation of the Odyssey. We will read the beginning of book 6. This has a reading guide that you should have with you or on your screen. I'll keep track of these questions. We'll go over them in order if you're watching this video. It's like we're working together in class. So I'll make sure I answer all of those questions as we go through the video. You know how I get in class. Sometimes I'll forget that I'm supposed to stop, and we'll go back and answer several in a row. But I'll do my best to pair the reading with the reading guide with the text so that we all have the answers as we read. All right, so once again, we're on book 6. We have our reading guide, questions with us. It is on page 168, and book 6 is entitled The Princess and the Stranger. Remember, Odysseus has just landed, been tossed by the sea up onto the beach after a horrific storm, and that's where book 6 begins. So there he lay at rest, the storm-tossed great Odysseus, borne down by his hard labors first, and now deep sleep, as Athena traveled through the countryside and reached the Phaeacian city. Years ago they lived in a land of spacious dancing circles, Hyperia, all too close to the overbearing Cyclops, stronger, violent brutes who harried them without end. So their godlike king, Nausithous, led the people off, in a vast migration settled them in Scheria, far from the men who toiled on this earth. He flung up walls around the city, built the houses, raised the gods' temples, and shared the land for plowing. But his fate had long since forced him down to death. And now Alcinous ruled, and the gods made him wise. So here's the answer to our first question. Who is king on this island of Scheria, where Odysseus finds himself? We look at the text, right? Some of you are going to immediately jump to Nausithous, but that is incorrect. Nausithous was the original king who led his people to Scheria. The correct answer is Alcinous. Alcinous is the present king of the Phaeacians, and the gods have made him wise. So who is the king of the island where Odysseus lands? Alcinous. Straight to Alcinous's house the clear-eyed Pallas went, full of plans for great Odysseus's journey home. She made her way to the gaily painted room where a young girl lay asleep, a match for the deathless gods in beauty and build, Nausicaa, the daughter of generous King Alcinous. 2 handmaids, fair as the Graces, slept beside her, flanking the 2 posts with the gleaming doors closed. But the goddess drifted through like a breath of fresh air, rushed to the girl's bed, and hovering close, she spoke. In the face and form like the shipman Dymas's daughter, a girl the princess's age, and dearest to her heart. Disguised, the bright-eyed goddess chided, Nausicaa, how could your mother bear a careless girl like you? Excuse me. Look at your fine clothes lying here neglected, with your marriage not far off. Today you should be decked in all your glory, and offered elegant dress to make to those whom form your escort. That's how a bride's good name goes out across the world, and it brings her father and queenly mother joy. Come, let's go wash these clothes at the break of day. I'll help you, lend a hand, and the work will fly. You won't stay unwed long. The noblest men in the country court you now, all Phaeacians, just like you, Phaeacia born and raised. So come, the first thing in the morning, press your kingly father to harness the mules and wagon for you, all to carry your sashes, dresses, glossy spreads for your bed. It's so much nicer for you to ride than go on foot. The washing pools are just too far from town. With that, the bright-eyed goddess sped away to Olympus, where they say the gods' eternal mansion stands unmoved, never rocked by gale winds, never drenched by rains, nor do the drifting snows assail it. No, The clear air stretches away without a cloud, and the great radiance plays across the world where the blithe gods live all their days in bliss. There Athena went. Once the bright-eyed one had urged the princess on. So let me pause again to answer these questions. Who is Nausicaa, and how does Athena appear to her? Let's look back at the text. First of all, Nausicaa on line 20. Nausicaa is a young girl, a beautiful young girl, a match for the deathless gods in build and beauty, who is the daughter of King Alcinous. So that's the most complete answer. Nausicaa is a young girl, the daughter of King Alcinous, who is a match for the gods with her beauty. So a beautiful young woman. All right. And how does Athena appear to her? Well, of course, Athena is disguised. All right. She is in face and form like the shipman Dymas's daughter. Why does she take that form? Because that girl is the princess's age and they're good friends. So Athena is disguised as Nausicaa's good friend, the shipman Dymas's daughter. Poor girl didn't get a name. She's just the shipman Dymas's daughter. And what is it that Athena says? In the dream, Athena says, you know, we should really wash your clothes. You want to look your best. After all, you're going to get married soon, and you should always be looking your best and showing your worth as a woman. And of course, that involves domestic labor in the patriarchal Greek society. So that's pretty much what Athena says. You know, let's go wash the clothes. Have your, dad hook us up with a wagon, and we'll go wash clothes together. It'll be a great day. Said no one ever. All right, so here we go. Continuing on, it looks like 52, maybe line 52, page 170. Book 6, line 52. I guess 53. Dawn soon rose on her splendid throne and woke Nausicaa finely gowned. Still beguiled by her dream, down she went through the house to tell her parents now, her beloved father and mother. She found them both inside. Her mother sat at the hearth with several waiting women, spinning yarn on a spindle, lustrous sea blue wool. Her father she met as he left to join the lords. At a council, island nobles asked him to attend. She stepped up close to him, confiding, Daddy dear, I wonder, won't you have them harness a wagon for me, the tall one with the good smooth wheels, so I can take our clothes to the river for a washing? Lovely things, but lying before me all soiled, and you yourself sitting among the princes debating points at your council. You really should be wearing spotless linen. Then you have 5 sons full grown in the palace, 2 of them married, but 3 are lusty bachelors, always demanding crisp shirts fresh from the wash when they go out to dance. Look at my duties, all rests on me. So she coaxed, too shy to touch on her hopes for marriage, young warm hopes in her father's presence. But he saw through it all and answered quickly, I won't deny you the mules, my darling girl. I won't deny you anything. Off you go, and the men will harness a wagon, the tall one with the good smooth wheels, fitted out with a cradle on the top. With that, he called to the stablemen, and they complied. They trundled the wagon out now, rolling smoothly, backed the mule team into the traces, hitched them up, while the princess brought her finery from the room and piloted into the wagon's polished cradle. Her mother packed a hamper, treats of all kinds, favorite things to refresh her daughter's spirits, poured wine in a skin, and Nausicaa climbed aboard. The queen gave her a golden flask of suppling olive oil for her and her maids to smooth on after bathing. Then, taking the whip in hand and glistening reins, she touched the mules to a start, and out they clattered, trotting on at a clip, bearing the princess and her clothes, and not alone. Her maids went with her, stepping briskly too. So, a couple more questions we have here. How does Nausicaa feel about her dream? The word, let me go back a page here. The word that this translation uses, that Fagles uses, is beguiled. Let me find it here. Still beguiled by her dream. Right? So what does it mean when one is beguiled? When something is beguiled, it's it's entrancing, it's captivated would be a good word. So she's still captivated by her dream. Right. She can't think of really anything else. It's luring her on, like entrancing her, wanting her to continue. So she feels motivated by the dream to make it come true. So of course she goes down and she asks her father for the wagon, but she's not exactly honest about her reasons, right? Right? She says, "Can you harness the wagon for me? But why do I need the wagon? Well, it's for washing, but you should really be wearing spotless women. All right. Think of my three brothers who are still unmarried. They need clean shirts for when they go out dancing." But her father is like, "Oh yeah, I know what you're looking for. You're looking to show that you're good at what you're supposed to do." But he doesn't deny her, and off she goes. And who goes with her? All her maids. Apparently, she gets to ride, and they get to walk beside the wagon. And so off they go to wash their clothes. Once they reached the banks of the river, flowing strong, where the pools would never fail, with plenty of water, cool and clear, bubbling up and rushing through to scour the darkest stains, they loosed the mules out from under the wagon yoke and chased them down the river's rippling banks to graze on luscious clover. Down from the cradle they lifted clothes by the armload, plunged them into the dark pools, and stamped them down in the hollows, one girl racing the next to finish first until they'd scoured and rinsed off all the grime. Then they spread them out in a line along the beach where the surf had washed a pebbly scree ashore. And once they bathed and smoothed their skin with oil, they took their picnic, sitting along the river's banks and waiting for all the clothes to dry in the hot noon sun. Now fed to their heart's content, the princess and her retinue, threw the veils to the wind, struck up a game of ball. White-armed Nausicaa led their singing, dancing beat, as lithe as Artemis with her arrows striding down from high peak, Taygetus's tower ridge, or Erymanthus, thrilled to race with the wild boar or bounding deer, and nymphs of the hills race with her. Daughters of Zeus, whose shield is storm and thunder, ranging in the hills, and sport and Leda's heart exalts, as head and shoulders over the rest her daughter rises unmistakable. She outshines them all, though all are lovely. So Nausicaa outshone. So Nausicaa shone among her maids, a virgin still unwed. Sorry, let me double check to see if that's... Yeah, that's a good place to stop to answer our next question. How does Homer describe Nausicaa? Beautiful, but not just beautiful, right? He describes her as Artemis, who is beautiful, but even among the beautiful stands head and shoulders over the rest. And if we look back at the text for a moment, she outshines them all, though all are lovely. So Nausicaa shone among her mates, virgin still unwed. So she is the most beautiful of all of them. So they're busy playing ball, dancing, singing, what have you. Let's see, we're here. But back to the book. But now, as she was about to fold her clothes and yoke the mules and turned for home again, now clear-eyed Pallas thought of what came next, to make Odysseus wake and see this young beauty, and she would lead him to the Phaeacians' town. The ball, Princess suddenly tossed it to a maid, but it missed the girl. It splashed in a deep swirling pool, and they all shouted. And that woke great Odysseus. He sat up with a start, puzzling, his heart pounding. Man of misery! Whose land have I lit on now? What are they here? Violent, savage, lawless? Or friendly to strangers, God-fearing men? Listen, shouting, echoing round me. Women, girls, or the nymphs who haunt the rugged mountaintops and the river springs and the meadows lush with grass? Or am I really close to people who speak my language? Up with you, see how the land lies, see for yourself. All right, so what wakes Odysseus up? The shouting. Well, it's Athena's plan, but it's the shouting of the girls. And when he wakes up, he's disoriented. After all, he's just survived this horrible storm. And he thinks to himself, am I really hearing people? Are they more nymphs, more gods to trap me? Or is it true that I actually am hearing Greek, right? And he's, up with myself, right? Up with you, see how the land lies, see for yourself. Now he's talking to himself. Get up and see what happens. Muttering so, great Odysseus crept out of the bushes, stripping off with his massive hand a leafy branch from the tangled olive growth to shield his body, hide his private parts. And out he stalked, as a mountain lion exultant in his power strives through wind and rain, and his eyes blaze, and he charges sheep or oxen or chases wild deer, but his hunger drives him on to go for flocks, even to raid the best defended homestead. So Odysseus moved out, about to mingle with all those lovely girls, naked now as he was, for the need drove him on. A terrible sight, all crusted, caked with brine. They scattered in panic down the jutting beaches. Only Alcinous' daughter held fast, for Athena planted courage within her heart, dissolved the trembling in her limbs, and she stood firmly, stood her ground, and faced Odysseus, torn now. Should he fling his arms around her knees, the young beauty, plead for help, or stand back, plead with a winning word, beg her to lead him to the town and lend him clothing? This way was the better way, he thought. Plead now with a subtle winning word, and stand well back. Don't clasp her knees. The girl might bridle, yes. So let me pause there again. I love the ridiculousness of this scene. All right. First of all, Odysseus wakes up, and remember he had to give up his clothes to brave the ocean, and only had the magical scarf on him. One of the things I skipped is when he washes up on shore, he has to immediately throw the magical scarf back, and then he just kind of passes out. So he's completely naked. But he's not just naked. He is super rough looking, right? He is, if we look at the text here, he is a terrible sight, all crusted and caked with brine. So brine, that was line 151, by the way. A terrible sight, all crusted and caked with brine. Brine is the salty residue after you've been in the ocean. If you've been in the ocean or you sweat a lot in the summer and you dry, right, the white crust that's left on you, that's the brine. So he's covered with like crusty, nasty ocean water dirt. All right. He only has a tangled olive branch to shield his body, hide his nakedness. All right. But he still goes on. He goes out to find these women. Why does he do that? It's this great epic simile, right? He is a mountain lion, right? Powerful, terrifying. And what do mountain lions hunt? Well, they hunt sheep or oxen or wild deer. But when they are so desperate, so hungry, they might even go for flocks that are protected by shepherds. That the hungry wild beast can't be deterred by mere guards. He'll go for anything that might save him. And that's where Odysseus is. He has to. His need drove him on to confront these girls who were bathing and washing their clothes. He can't be deterred by his horrible appearance and his nakedness, and so he moves forward. All right. But then there's this other great option. Everyone runs away because you have crazy naked men emerging from the bushes, except for Alcinous. Athena gives her strength. And then Odysseus has to debate two things. Right? Should he fling his arms around her knees, the young beauty, plead for her help, or stand back, plead with winning word, beg her to lead him to the town and lend him clothing? Right? He says, should I charge her and grasp her around her knees and beg for these things that I need? Or maybe I should just stand back and hide behind my olive branch and say, hi there. I was wondering if maybe you could help me, point me in the direction of town, and perhaps lend me some clothes. And Odysseus, wise as he is, thinks maybe ugly, naked guy shouldn't go running directly at this young woman, but will ask her from afar. All right, so here we are, back to the book, line 162. He launched in at once, endearing, sly, and suave. Here I am at your mercy, princess. Are you a goddess or a mortal? If one of the gods who ruled the skies up there, you're Artemis to the life, the daughter of mighty Zeus. I see her now. Just look at your build, your bearing, your lithe, flowing grace. What if you're one of the mortals living here on earth? 3 times blessed are your father, your queenly mother, 3 times over your brothers too. How often their hearts must warm with joy to see you striding into the dances, such a bloom of beauty. True, but he is the one more blessed than all the other men alive, that man who sways you with gifts and leads you home his bride. I have never laid eyes on anyone like you, neither man nor woman. I look at you, and a sense of wonder takes me. Wait, once I saw the like in Delos, beside Apollo's altar, the young slip of a palm tree springing into the light. There I'd sailed, you see, with a great army in my wake, out on the long campaign that doomed my life to hardship. That vision, just as I stood there gazing, rapt for hours. No shaft like that had ever risen up from the earth. So now I marvel at you, my lady, rapt, enthralled, too struck with awe to grasp you by the knees, though pain has ground me down. Only yesterday, the 20th day, did I escape the wine-dark sea. Till then the waves and the rushing gales had swept me on from the island of Ogygia. Now some power has tossed me here, doubtless to suffer still more torments on your shores. I can't believe they'll stop. Long before that, the gods will give me more, still more. Compassion, princess. Please, you, after all that I have suffered, you are the first I've come to. I know no one else, none in your city, no one in your land. Show me the way to town. Give me a rag for cover, just some cloth, some wrapper you carried with you here, and may the good gods give you all your heart desires, husband and house, and lasting harmony too. No finer, greater gift in the world than that. When a man and a woman possess their home, 2 minds, 2 hearts that work as one, despair to the enemies, a joy to all their friends, their own best claim to glory. Let's break this down for a minute. Remember that Odysseus is known for his metis, his cleverness, his tactics. So how does that speech demonstrate that he knows he says what he knows Nausicaa will want to hear? What are the elements of flattery and perhaps insightfulness that Odysseus uses in his speech? All right. Let's turn to the text. First of all, he says she looks like a goddess. All right. He compliments her. Princess, you must be a goddess. If you're not a goddess, you're a blessing to your family, because they must be so excited at your beauty whenever you dance. he said, but the most blessed will be the man who leads you home his bride. Odysseus seems to have a sense that deep down Nausicaa really wants a husband. That's her goal. And he somehow knows this goal and hits on it right away. You're beautiful. You'll make a future husband very, very happy. Right? And then he says, I've never seen it. Wait, I saw something as beautiful as you once, like this beautiful palm tree next to the altar of Apollo, blah, 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 blah. So you're as beautiful as nature. And then he launches into his story so that she has pity for him. You know, he's been tossed on the sea for 20 days, and he finally ended up here. He doesn't know anyone. He suffered so much. Throws in a couple hints like he was the leader of a great army, things like that. And he says, all I need from you. What does he need from Nausicaa? He needs compassion. Can you please give me a rag? And in return, I hope the gods give you a husband and a house, because if you have both of those, what more could you wish for? Well, let's look at Nausicaa's response. Stranger, the white-armed princess answered staunchly. Friend, you're hardly a wicked man, and no fool, I'd say. It's Olympian Zeus himself who hands our fortunes out, to each of us in turn, to the good and the bad, however Zeus prefers. He gave you pain, it seems. You simply have to bear it. But now, seeing you've reached our city and our land, you'll never lack for clothing or any other gift. The right of worn-out suppliants come our way. I'll show you our town, tell you our people's name. Phaeacians we are, who hold this city and this land. And I am the daughter of generous King Alcinous. All our people's power stems from him. She called out to her girls with lovely braids, Stop, my friends. Why run when you see a man? Surely you don't think him an enemy, do you? There's no one alive. There never will be one who'd reach Phaeacian soil and lay it waste. The immortals love us far too much for that. We live too far apart out in the surging sea, off at the world's end. No other mortals come to mingle with us. But here's an unlucky wanderer strayed our way, and we must tend him well. Every stranger and beggar comes from Zeus, and whatever scraps we give him, he'll be glad to get. So quick, my girls, give our newfound friend some food and drink, and bathe the man in the river, wherever you find some shelter from the wind. All right, once again, a great example of Xenia. If we look at the text, right? Nausicaa says, every stranger and beggar comes from Zeus, and whatever scrap we give him, he'll be glad to get. All right. So all suffering comes from Zeus. What else does she say to Odysseus? All right. She says, you know, you just simply have to bear it, but now that you've reached Phaeacia, right, you'll never lack for anything. Alcinous is the king, he's my dad, we'll take care of you. And then she calls out to her girls and explains that Phaeacia, or Scheria, the land of the Phaeacians, seems to be blessed. It lies far out at sea. No other mortal can get there, and the gods would never allow someone bad to interfere with the Phaeacian homeland. So that's kind of her reasons to the girls of trusting him. And she says, quick, we got to give him Xenia, give him food, give him drink. We're going to wash him, and we'll see where we go from there. All right, back to reading, please. Book 6, line 233. At that they came to a halt and teased each other on and led Odysseus down to a sheltered spot where he could find a seat. Just as great Alcinous' daughter told them, they laid out a cloak and a shirt for him to wear. Remember, they had brought her dad's clothes and all her brother's clothes, so they had clothes that they could easily give Odysseus. They laid out a cloak and a shirt for him to wear. They gave him the golden flask of suppling olive oil, and pressing him to bathe himself in the river stream, Then thoughtful Odysseus reassured the handmaids. Stand where you are, dear girls, a good way off, so I can rinse the brine from my shoulders now and rub myself with oil. How long it's been since oil touched my skin. But I won't bathe in front of you. I would be embarrassed stark naked before young girls with lovely braids. The handmaids scurried off to tell their mistress. Right, so Odysseus has some sense of decency, one might say. Odysseus, says, no, no, no. You young girls are not going to bathe me. I'll bathe myself. You go elsewhere. I'll come back to see you when I'm done. Great Odysseus bathed in the river, scrubbed his body clean of brine that clung to his back and broad shoulders, scoured away the brackish scurf that caked his head, and then once he had bathed all over, rubbed in oil and donned the clothes the virgin princess gave him. Zeus's daughter Athena made him taller to all eyes, his build more massive now. Down from his brow she ran his curls like thick hyacinth clusters full of blooms. As a master craftsman washes gold over beaten silver, a man, the god of fire, and Queen Athena trained in every fine technique and finishes off his latest efforts' handsome work, so she lavished splendor over his head and shoulders now. Right, so Athena makes him look even more beautiful, taller, hyacinth curls. Maybe some of you have hyacinths outside your house right now, the clustered flowers with the small petals, pink, purple, white often. But so his hair is so tightly curled that it looks like a hyacinth cluster, luxurious on his head. Right? And so Athena lavishes this splendor on Odysseus. And down to the beach he walked and sat apart, glistening in his glory, breathtaking, yes, and the princess gazed in wonder, then turned to her maids with lovely braided hair. Listen, my white-armed girls, to what I tell you. The gods of Olympus can't be all against this man who's come to mingle among our noble people. At first he seemed appalling, I must say. Now he seems like a god who rules the skies up there. If only a man like that were called my husband, lived right here, pleased to stay forever. Enough. Give the stranger food and drink, my girls. They hung on her words and did her will at once, set before Odysseus food and drink, and he ate and drank, and the great Odysseus, long deprived, so ravenous now, it seemed like years since he'd tasted food. Let's pause and look at our guided reading questions. All right. We talked about how Odysseus aids, Athena aids Odysseus's looks, and what is the effect on Nausicaa? What does she say to her maids? We look at the text. Right? If only a man like that were called my husband, lived right here, pleased to stay forever. So suddenly she goes from being kind of appalled at Odysseus' appearance to thinking like, wow, if only that guy were my husband and stayed here forever, things would be all right. Back to our story. Line 270, what is it? 7, it looks like. Book 6, line 277. The white-armed princess thought of one last thing. Folding the clothes, she packed them into her painted wagon, hitched the sharp-hoofed mules, and climbing up herself, Nausicaa urged Odysseus, warmly urged her guest. Up with you now, my friend, and off to town we go. I'll see you into my wise father's palace, where I promise you'll meet all the best Phaeacians. Wait, let's do it this way. You seemed no fool to me. While we were passing along the fields and plowlands, you followed the mules and wagons, stepping briskly with all my maids. I'll lead the way myself. But once we reach our city, ringed by walls and strong high towers too, with a fine harbor either side, and the causeway in is narrow, along the road the rolling ships are all hauled up, with a slipway cleared for every vessel. There's our assembly round Poseidon's royal precinct, built of quarried slabs planted deep in the earth. Here the sailors tend their black ships, tackle, cables, and sails, and plane their oar blades down. Phaeacians, you see, care nothing for bow and quiver, only for masts and oars and good trimmed ships themselves. We glory in our ships crossing the foaming seas. But I shrink from all our sea dogs' nasty gossip. Some old salt might mock us behind our backs. We have our share of insolent types in town, and one of the coarser sort spying us might say, now who's that tall, handsome stranger Nausicaa has in tow? Where'd she light on him, her husband-to-be? Just wait. But who? Some shipwrecked stray she's taken up with? Some alien from abroad, since nobody lives nearby? Unless it's really a god come down from the blue to answer all her prayers and to have her all his days. Good riddance. Let the girl go roving to find herself a man from foreign parts. She only spurns her own. Countless Phaeacians round about who court her. Nothing but our best. So they'll scoff. Just think of the scandal that would face me then. I'd find fault with a girl who carried on that way, flouting her parents' wishes. Father, mother still alive, consorting with men before she'd tied the knot in public. No, stranger, listen closely to what I say. The sooner to win your swift voyage home at my father's hands. Now, you'll find a splendid grove along the road, poplars sacred to Pallas. A bubbling springs inside, the meadows run round it. There lies my father's estate, his blossoming orchard, too, as far from town as a man's strong shout can carry. Take a seat there. Wait a while and give us time to make it into town, reach my father's house. Then, when you think we are home, walk on yourself to the city, ask the way to my father's palace, generous King Alcinous. You cannot miss it, even an innocent child could guide you there. No other Phaeacian house is built like that, so grand the palace of Alcinous, our great hero. Once the mansion and courtyard have enclosed you, go quickly across the hall until you reach my mother. Beside the hearth, she sits in the fire's glare, spinning yarn on a spindle, sea blue wool, a stirring sight you'll see. And my father's throne is drawn up close beside her. There he sits and takes his wine, immortal, like a god. Go past him, grasp my mother's knees. If you want to see the day of your return rejoicing soon, even if your home's a world away, if only the queen will take you to heart, then there's hope that you will see your loved ones, reach your own grand house, your native lands at last. At that, she touched the mules with her shining whip, and they quickly left the running stream behind. The team trotted on, their hooves wove in and out. She drove them back with care, so all the rest, maids and Odysseus, should keep the pace on foot, and she used the whip discreetly. The sun sank as they reached the hollow grove, sacred to Athena, where Odysseus stopped and said a prayer at once to mighty Zeus's daughter. Hear me, daughter of Zeus, whose shield is thunder, tireless one Athena. Now hear my prayer at last, for you never heard me then when I was shattered, when the famous god of earthquakes wrecked my craft. Grant that here, among the Phaeacian people, I may find some mercy and some love. So he prayed, and Athena heard his prayer, but would not yet appear to him undisguised. She stood in awe of her father's brother, lord of the sea, who still seethed on, still churning with rage against the great Odysseus, till he reached his native land. So concludes Book 6 of the Odyssey. Before you go, let's take a look at these final questions on the reading guide. All right. So Nausicaa says she will offer Odysseus, everything he'll need, an escort into town. But she then insists that Odysseus will not walk with her. So what is she worried about? And what does she say she would do if a young woman brought a stranger into town? So let's turn back to the text. All right. She starts with, I'll see you into my wise father palace, where you'll meet all the best Phaeacians. So that's number one. What will she offer? She will offer personal escort with her maids and wagon back to the city, to the palace where she lives with her father. All right. And then she goes on to describe the palace. But she says, we're sailors, and sailors gossip. Some old salt might mock us behind our back, right? People would start to gossip and say, oh, that must be, Nausicaa's husband, a foreigner. She's too good for the Phaeacians, so she spurns her own in favor of some foreigner. So this would be quite scandalous, right? So she fears the gossip of the old sailors and that they think that she's taken a husband, a lover, in secret, a foreigner. She says, even I'd find fault with that girl who would be consorting with men before she tied the knot in public. Right? She's like, I don't want to be, shamed that I'm hanging out with a man. So you hang back, don't let anyone see that you're walking with us, and you come on later to the palace and join us later. Right? And then she has some final advice to offer. She says, when you do reach the palace, any kid knows where the palace is. When you enter, right, quickly cross the hall until you reach my mother. Go past Alcinous, go past the king, grasp my mother's knees if you want to see the day of your return. If only the queen will take you to heart, then there's hope. You will see your loved ones, reach your own grand house, your native land at last. So talk to the queen first, win her over, and Alcinous will be easy to follow. All right. And then in final prayer, Odysseus asks Athena, right, to hear his prayers, let him find some mercy and love among the Phaeacians. Right? And Athena hears her prayer, but doesn't grant it fully because she still fears something, or specifically someone. She fears her father's brother, the Lord of the Sea, who is still raging. So who is that? She fears Poseidon. Poseidon is still enraged at Odysseus. And eventually, we'll very specifically from Odysseus' own storytelling find out why. So great work. Hopefully you got all the answers to the Book 6 guided reading. Feel free to click ahead on the next video where I explain what goes on in Books 7 and 8. That'll be it for this week after we do those summaries. Thanks for watching.